NuVoodoo Live.
Good to have you here for another session. This one is going to focus on our clients from the radio industry. So as much as we love our friends from packaged goods and political, this one may not apply to you. Some of the vocabulary might be over your head, but if you're kind of interested in a little bit about how music decisions are made and how we target the people that are going to be most influential in radio station playlists, well, stick around. This could be something for you. Lee Jacobs, our Executive Vice President of Research Analysis, and I came up through the ranks in corporate radio. We've been working together here at NuVoodoo for well over a decade now. And one of the things that the two of us developed, and I actually became one of Lee's biggest clients because I would commission two huge studies every year where our goal was to try to understand the difference between a regular old-fashioned radio listener and that special, unique subset that was willing to jump through hoops and become part of a ratings panel or a diary-keeping universe. And Lee, I think there's nobody better to maybe explain not only kind of how we do it, but what makes that person so special and so hard to find.
Well, the ratings prospects or the ratings likelies or RPS yes folks that we've talked about for 21 consecutive studies that we've done principally for marketing efforts, both internally, and we've shared that information with the industry for all of these 10 plus years. And what you find out is if people are invited into the Nielsen sample, a Nielsen type sample, it's not specifically theirs, I guess, but when you look at the people who would jump through those hoops and hurdles, in the diary markets, that's fill out a paper pamphlet with all of your radio listening for a week's time and make sure that you and everybody 12 and up in your household is doing it as well. That's not a small lift. That's difficult. In the PPM markets, sure, carry this pager around with you and get everybody over age 6 and up to do the same thing and make sure it's out there moving around and being exposed to audio so that hopefully you're picking up some radio listening. It's a huge lift, and the people who are most likely to participate in it have a few different special criteria. For one, since on the invitation side, they know that they're going to be involved in this massive survey about radio listening or TV viewing, they're more media active. I mean, in this latest data, Mike, that you're showing from our January study, increased amounts of daily time spent listening to 5 different slices of audio there, whether it's DSPs, which is our shorthand for digital streaming providers like Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, and others, or broadcast radio, massive lift, 36 minutes per day in the overall sample. And among that 20% slice, the ratings likelies, almost an hour a day. And you see 52 minutes compared to 29 across the total sample for podcasting. They like consuming media. They're great media consumers.
And these folks are important not only because of they classify in as the report card givers and they give a lot more time spent listening to radio. And we've leveraged them for a decade plus in our marketing products. But now for the very first time, we are going to be able to use that segment to help you more deeply interpret your library music test. It's a new segmentation strategy called the Ratings Prospect Index. And I know this is something that I wish I had as a rank and file programmer. Lee, we basically are going to be able to look at likely ratings prospects and give them a say in the type of music our radio station clients play.
Absolutely. I mean, I agree with you. I wished I'd had this tool when I was, carrying the PD monkey on my back every day, because it really does address the kind of people who are likely to impanel with Nielsen. So that we learned that it's steadily about 20% of any sample would fall into that rank. So knowing that, we're confident finally that we could deliver that regularly and have already done it as part of an OMT, a library music test. And listen, it's probably not going to be the primary way that you make decisions about music out of your sample. When you get analyst, and there's a little screenshot up in front of us now, when you get that, you're probably not going to make most of your decisions on the ratings prospects, the RPI score, the ratings prospect index, as it were. But for the choices you've got to make, the ties that need to be broken, the final choice. Is that a secondary or tertiary? Is that a primary or not? Where do we fall with this title? It's a great extra tool because ultimately those are the souls that are going to give you your report card. And listen, I'd love to screen the sample down to just those people, but it would, as I said, about 1 in 5 people will participate. So it would increase the cost of a music test by a factor of 5. And that's supported by no one's budget.
Right. And let's face it, we need to be broadly appealing, not just to the folks that that participate in the ratings, because let's face it, the advertiser needs to reach an entire marketplace. So it's definitely important to be broadly appealing, but this is just basically an added analytical tool. And for those who may be in corporate positions, a little bit scared that that a radio station in a smaller market that doesn't have the same level of resources might overinterpret that segment. Lee, you and the other team members at NuVoodoo are right there to guide programming teams through the studies that you do.
We love this stuff. I mean, I am always willing to roll up my sleeves, get my hands dirty, get, select or rather analyst open and put up the filters and figure out how are we going to strategize and stratify the music out of a music test to make sure they're in the right categories, getting the right kinds of exposure, and talk through any programming team how we need to do it and what the goals need to be. Always there, every time.
Needle in the haystack, but worth it when you can find them and especially influence their behavior. And that's what we've been doing in the marketing department for.
Right, because we've also learned, looking at that 20% group, come on, particularly at PPM, the first thing that they're going to say about why they would participate.
Bribes.
Yeah.
Contests.
Yep. And now you see more and more contests being overlaid in the PPM markets to keep people empaneled longer so that they're all great contest players. Why we see that tactic so often.
Before we let folks go, I want to make sure that there's a full understanding of the different types of music research that we make available for library music testing. We have the OMT EXT, which includes this bonus segment, but the EXT also has a unique feature that does something more. It helps fight respondent burnout. You and I have both hosted music tests for Critical Mass back when we used to work for what is now iHeart. And we remember the problem of respondent getting up to song number 525 of 600. A real problem. This OMT EXT addresses that.
Well, the EXT just breaks the sample into monads so that if it's a 100 sample test, roughly speaking, we're going to double that number. So one half will hear the first 300 songs and the other half will hear the other 300 songs. It's not that linear because the sequence of songs that each respondent gets is different. We randomize it for everyone. So it's on us to keep track of that. But roughly speaking, half the sample hears the first group of songs, half the second, but it's on us to make sure those two groups of people, those two groups in the sample, are identical in terms of their age characteristics, their listening characteristics, ethnicity, gender, everything has to be identical. And the great outcome of this is that everyone hears about half the songs and they all answer all the additional questions. So instead of relying on the opinions of 100 people at the bottom, you're usually looking at least 200 people who've answered all your perceptual extra questions throughout the test. So it's a great outcome. We think it's a win-win.
And that's OMT EXT, 2 groups of respondents, thereabouts, extra questions, plus the new RPI segmentation.
Right.
And then, of course, let's not forget there's a banking crisis going on as we record this. We're potentially at the beginning of a recession. You know that means that people have to make some tough choices. We have a solution for the tough choice. We call it the OMT Lite.
Right. Where we pare everything back. It's the process that stations are going through right now. What can we live without? Well, if you needed to, you could live without the extra questions. You can rely on what you learned in your last perceptual study. Fine. But let's still get a read on the core part of your library. So if we can set that at 400 titles, 100 sample, no question groups, that we can deliver for under $10,000. $9,500 gets you answers about 400 titles with a solid sample. And that certainly would instill more confidence in me as a programmer trying to get through a book than, well, I hope these are still okay. Things are just changing too fast. Songs get overexposed in ways that we're not even necessarily paying attention through exposure on a TV show or on some online thing that people get attuned to. So having fresh information is always important.
Lee, we're really right up against the spring book, and I'm sure there's some folks with some last minute needs. Where do folks get in touch with you?
Well, if it's me, if it's about anything regarding research, email me. It's Lee, Leigh, at NuVoodoo.com. And if you want to talk marketing in any way, shape, or form, reach out to Mike, Mike, at NuVoodoo.com.
We can't wait to hear from you.
For over a decade, NuVoodoo has been highlighting the differences between regular radio listeners and the people most likely to participate in the ratings. Now we bring that expertise to your online music test. Introducing the new Ratings Prospect Index. While it's important to play songs that appeal to your total audience, the Ratings Prospect Index allows you to optimize your station's music mix for likely ratings participants. To learn more about online music tests with the new Ratings Prospect Index, contact us at tellmemore@nuvoodoo.com.